Hey, what's up guys, it's Bovinax. This video I'm doing something kind of special. Legion's coming out pretty soon, so I thought it'd be cool to go ahead and take a look back at all the World of Warcraft expansions. I've actually been playing since Burning Crusade, so I've played through all the World of Warcraft expansions. I've been subscribed, haven't really taken a break since the Burning Crusade, so I've pretty much experienced all of these expansions, and so I think it'd be pretty cool to talk about them. At the end I will tell you what my favorite is, but keep in mind that's just my own personal silly opinion, and everybody's experience with the game does vary. I'm going to talk about vanilla. It's not in the running to win because it's not an expansion, but I thought I'd still just talk about it anyway. So I'm going to start off with vanilla. Enjoy the video. Now, I told you guys that I would not pick vanilla as the winner simply because it's not an expansion, and I think that's kind of fair. I think it would be unfair to compare vanilla to all the other expansions because vanilla is the base game. All the expansions are just built on vanilla. Everything, it started with vanilla, and everything else is just an addition to vanilla. And I think vanilla was my best time playing World of Warcraft. All of my best memories come from vanilla. And when I say vanilla, I just mean Azeroth, the original Eastern Kingdoms, and Kalimdor. I never even played when vanilla was the base game. I started playing in 2007 when Burning Crusade was already out, but that vanilla leveling experience was still in place in the game. And whenever I think about World of Warcraft, that's what I always think about. My best memories come from these dungeons, these zones, everything like that. I had a really strong sense of nostalgia when I think about vanilla compared to any of the other expansions or anything like that. I think the main reason for that is just because that's the first time I started playing the game. You know, whenever I first started playing the game, these were the zones I saw, and this was the content that I experienced. You know, whenever I first downloaded the game, it took like a whole day to download the game on this shitty laptop, and Tirisfal Glades was actually the first zone that I ever logged into and saw when I made an undead warrior, and I was just blown away by this cool game. That was unlike anything I've ever seen before. The just really cool and unique features that vanilla had, with all the races having their own starting zone, and all the races having their own capital city, and just the opposition between the Alliance and Horde in PvP, and the just quintessential World of Warcraft feel of something that was, you know, it's really cartoony art style, yet at the same time it's really serious and epic, which I just really like. Now, I'm well aware that I'm probably making out vanilla to be way better than it actually was, and it's kind of hard to tell if that's just me being nostalgic and the memories I have of it. Keep in mind I was also much younger then, and I probably had a better experience because of that. I was probably more fascinated by stuff in the game and everything like that. But it's hard to find a balance between being nostalgic about it and the memories versus reality. And I will say that I played on Nostarius. Okay, I'm not super proud of that, but I did. I just could not stop playing Nostarius, okay? I started playing it and I just kept on playing it. It was a great experience. I had more fun on Nostarius than I've had on live in a very long time. I was playing Warlords of Draenor all the time, but I basically just quit playing it whenever Nostarius came out and just played Nostarius instead because I thought it was better. And I think it genuinely is better just because of the, you know, just the aspects of social interaction and features in the game like that. I was playing a Warlock. I had all these epic quest chains that I was doing. You know, it was a great experience, I will say that. I really want the game to just be like vanilla was now, but that's not going to happen. You pretty much got to accept that. That's the reality of the situation. It's only going to be less like vanilla as time goes on, but I think that's okay because it only adds to the legacy that was vanilla. Long gone are the days when even the most trivial things like seeing Thrall for the first time in Orgrimmar was one of the most epic experiences ever.
Strength. Strength. And honor.
I'm sorry to have gone on about vanilla for so long in a video that's about expansions, but here's one last tribute to the original game.
By fire be burned.
The Burning Crusade.
Comes up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins.
Okay, now the Burning Crusade. Ah, the Burning Crusade. Good times, good times. Except maybe the launch. But other than that, good times. Guys, this was an epic expansion, okay? Remember that quintessential Warcraft feel I talked about a while ago that I saw so consistently in vanilla? Well, they kept it, and yet they expanded upon it and gave an even more unique and creative art style that still kept the Warcraft feel, and it was just awesome, okay? I played her in the Burning Crusade, however I started playing in the middle of the Burning Crusade, probably a little earlier than the middle of the Burning Crusade, but I was not around for launch, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at that. But going through the Dark Portal for the first time is just a really epic experience. Even though I was only level 58 when I went through it, not level 60 like most people. It was just, you really got the sense that it was a whole other world. Especially going in the first time and seeing those demons coming through. And for the noobs like myself, who knew absolutely no lore and didn't read any quest text whatsoever, the threat of the Burning Legion became very apparent simply by looking at the surroundings. Illidan Stormrage is a pretty epic lore character, and the way the Black Temple loomed over you throughout the expansion was pretty cool. You knew it was there, you knew Illidan was in there, but you couldn't go in it towards the end of the expansion. Illidan's not as cool as other lore character that I'll talk about in the next expansion, but still a great one nonetheless. Unfortunately, if you were a noob, such as myself, you would never set foot in the Black Temple. You wouldn't even set foot in Karazhan, or even a normal dungeon for that matter. I was always confused when I had full PvP gear, yet I couldn't find a dungeon group. I'm not someone who can really talk about the epic raiding experience in the Burning Crusade because I really just didn't raid at all. When Wrath of the Lich King rolled around, I got in and got to see the Burning Crusade raids, but I just can't talk about that epicness because I never got to experience it. However, I will say I did like how raiding was just sort of an epic experience that I didn't get to experience, you know. I knew that it was in the game, and it was also always something that I sort of could strive for, even though I actually never reached it during the Burning Crusade, for a variety of reasons, the main one being that I wasn't good enough and that I was a little kid. But the concept that the epic raids were there, and I wasn't good enough to enter them, was a little bit frustrating, but I didn't really mind it because there's still tons of other content to do, and I sort of like the idea that, you know, if I worked hard enough, maybe one day I would get to set foot in, you know, Sunwell.
The Sunwell's essence endured, kept hidden by those who sought to protect it. Now, I have returned with the knowledge that sacrifices must be made before we can reclaim our birthright. I have forged a new alliance. Soon, the blessed rays of the Sunwell will shine once again and usher into this world the one who will deliver us all.
The Sunwell was not easy, and it was not for everybody. Well, Burning Crusade is pretty awesome. What was that expansion that came after it called again? Something about a lich guy or something?
truest victory, my son, is stirring the hearts of your people. I tell you this, for when my days have come to an end, you shall be king.
Have you ever heard someone say they didn't like Wrath of the Lich King? Nope. I've never heard anybody say that either. Well, there was that content drop at the end of the expansion where we were all stuck in ICC. Or at least some of us were stuck in ICC. I never actually set foot in there. But cut me some slack, I was only 9 years old. And plus, when everybody asked me what my gear score was, I told them level 80. Tons of people say that Arthas was the best lore character that Blizzard ever created, and I'm really not much of a lore person, but I'd say I'd have to agree. And the way the Lich King sort of, was kept appearing in the quest experience, leveling up, just was a very persistent threat, and his presence was always known. There was a lot of really cool cutscenes and cinematics in this expansion that just sort of let you know the really threatening presence of the Lich King and the Scourge. This time I was really not a very social player, and so in-game for me was really unrated PvP, and I thought Wintergrasp was a really cool and epic experience. And I really don't think that Blizzard has achieved a PvP zone as good as Wintergrasp ever since it was made. I feel like maybe PvP has kind of gotten swept under the rug the past few expansions, and I think that's kind of a shame because it's a really unique experience since it's never really the same experience each time since you're actually playing against other people. And, I could raid too, but, I'd much rather play against people than with them. Nah, come on guys, I'm just kidding. But another really cool feature in Wrath of the Lich King was the Dungeon Finder and heirlooms. You guys might not remember that this is the expansion when those two things came around for better or for worse. Wrath of the Lich King is really the expansion where things started to get easier. And people point the finger at Cataclysm a lot of times, but these features first appeared in Wrath of the Lich King. Wrath of the Lich King is a renowned expansion, and I don't think it shouldn't be. I loved Wrath of the Lich King. It was a great expansion. It was a great experience. And what was really cool about it is that even though these easier features were starting to seep into the game, it was a happy medium, okay? There was a good balance between difficulty and easiness, okay? The content was becoming more accessible to a wider range of the players. Myself, for instance, I started tanking dungeons all the time. I started using the Dungeon Finder a lot to find groups. I was seeing content that I'd never previously gotten to see, and it still had at least some degree of challenge in it towards the beginning of the expansion. At least for myself, towards the end, it was just pretty much face roll. But, these features started coming into the game that made the game easier and more accessible to more people. The population of the game grew, and it was really just a pretty fun time. Making content accessible to more of the player base was a really good idea for them at the time. It caused the player base to grow, and it caused more people to see the content that they were putting so much work into. Just think about how many people killed Jaden in the Burning Crusade versus how many people killed the Lich King in Wrath of the Lich King. It was just crazy. I didn't even know that Kill Jaden was even the end boss of Sunwell. Obviously everybody knew that the Lich King was the end boss of ICC. Wrath of the Lich King is a lot of people's favorite expansion. I think it's a good medium between hard and easy content, and I really wish that I had been a better player back then. I really would have enjoyed it. Just a great all-around expansion, guys.
My soul was one of the first to be devoured by your evil. There are thousands more bound within this blade, and they cry out for release. Look now to your defenses, my son, for the champions of justice gather at your gates.
Wrath of the Lich King was a great expansion. So the expansion after it must have been even better, right?
The world heaves with my torment. Its wretched kingdoms quake beneath my rage. But at last, the whole of Azeroth will break. And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
I have mixed feelings about Cataclysm, and a lot of people downright hate Cataclysm, and they really see it as the turning point for the game for the worse, and I really just disagree with that. I think Cataclysm was a really good, solid expansion. It definitely had its flaws, but one thing I will say is that following up Wrath of the Lich King with Arthas as the end boss, creating a significant threat, they did a really good job with Deathwing, I think. While you're playing, you just feel a really genuine threat from Deathwing, especially in that cinematic. These are zones that you've played for years now, and they're just being completely destroyed. Hey, so that's why they call him the Destroyer. People were really sad to see a lot of these old zones go, myself included. But I think that the way they did it, with Deathwing, being the end boss of the expansion, and revamping the zones through the wake of his destruction, basically, I think was a really good and creative way to go about doing it. And as much as I hate to see these zones go, I think Cataclysm was good for getting rid of them. I think that was a good decision on Blizzard's part. A lot of these zones were just really outdated, and I think that getting rid of them contributed to the legacy of the zones. I think the fact that, a zone like Old Thousand Needles, which used to be so much different, is taken out of the game completely, that just makes the zone that much more awesome that it's not there anymore. One reason Cataclysm has such a bad reputation is because it introduced the Scourge, known as Raid Finder. Now, I'm kind of an interesting person when it comes to Raid Finder because I used to be a really bad player, and I used to not be able to see this content unless I actually used Raid Finder, and back then I was okay with it, and I liked it, and now I am a good player who can do normal and heroic raids, and I don't like Raid Finder anymore, so it is kind of based on the player. I will say that I think Raid Finder is good in the fact that it helps players who are not as good see this content that they put a lot of work into creating, which is really good content. But at the same time, I think it does the content a disservice because it's too easy and basically just gives welfare epics. I personally much preferred a system back in Wrath of the Lich King or Burning Crusade where players strive to meet this content and there was other endgame outside of raiding. I don't think there's anything wrong with players earning content, and I don't think it's sustainably fun to do Raid Finder where it's just a hectic 25-player mess. Cataclysm gets a bad reputation because it spawned one of the main problems with World of Warcraft today, but I still think it was a solid expansion and definitely underrated.
Your efforts are insignificant. I shall show you a true cataclysm.
He is heading to the Maelstrom. We must stop him now. We may never get another chance if he escapes into Deepholm.
The Destroyer.
Deathwing was a really serious and scary threat, so you would think that whatever came after Deathwing would be even scarier, right?
Until it ran aground. Aground? Where?
Why do we fight? To protect home and family. To preserve balance and bring harmony. For my kind, the true question is, what is worth fighting for?
Now, you can say what you want to say about Mists of Pandaria. It was just basically, what it was is the entire expansion was basically just based on a joke, okay? And I think it was kind of funny that it even exists at all still. Like, it's pandas. Like, come on, alright? That's not Warcraft at all. It's just ridiculous. But I really did like Mists of Pandaria. This expansion was very creative and unique, and it was completely unlike anything we had ever seen before. I actually got to play the midnight release for Mists of Pandaria. I got up to play the midnight release for Cataclysm as well. But the first time I saw these zones, I was just really kind of amazed by it, because it just wasn't like anything we'd ever seen in the game before. Mists of Pandaria definitely had its flaws. One of the main ones being that the Siege of Orgrimmar patch lasted for a very long time. At the time of Mists of Pandaria, I was getting a lot better as a player, and this was sort of the expansion where I transitioned into getting good at the game, basically. I still didn't raid at all, though, really. Mainly I was a PvP player and did raided PvP, arenas, and raided battlegrounds. I really did like the unique style that they went with for Mists of Pandaria. However, I would say that as the expansion wore on, I did kind of start to get tired of it. In hindsight, I think an idea like Mists of Pandaria might have been better as a zone as opposed to an entire expansion, but I mean, they still did a really good job with it. I think Mists of Pandaria sort of shows that Blizzard, in particular their art team, can pretty much just make any concept into a pretty good game. Mists of Pandaria really doesn't have such a great reputation, and a lot of people do kind of see it as a time when the game got worse. However, I think it did do better than Cataclysm. However, to be such a ridiculous theme to the expansion, I think it was received quite well. I have to admit that the first time I saw Mists of Pandaria, as far as the concept for the expansion, I was skeptical of how they were going to make the threats seem real. I think Garrosh Hellscream served as a really genuine threat, and this cinematic for the Siege of Orgrimmar patch is one of my favorites ever.
Enough! You have run rampant for far too long, Hellscream. But that stops now. Step aside, Pandarin. You confront a force beyond reckoning. Your father dabbled in powers beyond reckoning. Where is he now? Beside the Tauren, trolls, and others. You are nothing like them. They are no longer part of my horde. The world will hear of this. They will come for you. Yes, I'm counting on it. The armies of the world will come for me. And within my fortress, they will face all the terrible creatures I have wrought. The boundless power I have mastered. And one by one, they will fall at my feet. Anyone who would rise against my new horde will be impaled upon the spires of Orgrimmar! You Pandaren tried to bury your hate and your anger, but such power cannot be contained. It must be unleashed! A time will come when you will answer for your crimes. I answer to no one! All who challenge me will burn in the fires of my hatred. We will never be slaves! But we will be conquerors.
We told Blizzard we were tired of these damn pandas. We wanted to get back into Warcraft, man. And they listened. We went into the very origins of Warcraft itself. Blizzard set the stage for what would be the best expansion ever, right? No, unfortunately, it really didn't turn out that way. For those of you who think that I was kissing Blizzard's ass for saying that I thought Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria were good expansions, well, I'm not going to sugarcoat this one for you, alright? Worlds of Draenor, it wasn't a good expansion. At the end of the video, I'm going to tell you what my favorite World of Warcraft expansion was. Spoiler alert, it wasn't this one. But I'm not going to hit on Warlords of Draenor, okay? People have done that already plenty, believe me. I'm going to talk about the positives as much as I can, but thank God Legion is coming out, okay? Soon. Prior to Warlords of Draenor, I was never really much of a raider at all, but in Warlords of Draenor, I raided fairly seriously. At the start of World of Draenor, I had planned to pretty much basically be a PvP player, however the lack of content and the clusterfuck known as Ashran pretty much forced me into raiding. And although this was not my number one choice of content, I think it actually was good for me as a player personally because it caused me to get better at the game. I was on a low pop realm at the start of the expansion, I did a little bit of High Maul, I thought it was a really cool raid. Then I got into Blackrock Foundry, I did Blackrock Foundry on normal, started clearing some heroic bosses on Blackrock Foundry, and then eventually Hellfire Citadel was out for a long time, and I did a ton of heroic Hellfire Citadel. I cleared every boss plenty of times, and, you know, got 795 ring. I've been playing the game for a long time, so I've always been really knowledgeable about it. However, in Worlds of Draenor was the transition for me when I actually started being a really good player, relatively speaking. As far as, you know, skill goes, as far as using key bindings, not turning with the keyboard and stuff like that. I just basically became much less of a casual player and more of a serious raider, and the raids were really good in Worlds of Draenor. There were only 3 raids, but each raid was really good. The art department did a phenomenal job, and the encounters themselves were really fun and engaging, although encounters are pretty complicated nowadays. I still have a lot of resentment towards Worlds of Draenor, but I think I'll like it a lot more whenever Legion gets here, and I can just forget about it.
A great man once told me, in the light, we are one. The future is ours, and we will see Draenor rebuilt together.
I've had a lot of fun playing World of Warcraft over the years, and I've enjoyed pretty much every expansion. Worlds of Draenor was pretty bad, but I've still been subbed all the way through it, and I've still played it pretty regularly. I think the future is relatively good. I think Legion should be better than Mists of Pandaria and better than Warlords of Draenor, but I can't be completely sure. I just have to wait and see. I'm really interested to see what expansions are going to come next, and how many more expansions are they going to make, and the future of the game in general. I think it's still going relatively strong, but I think it could get a lot more popular, or it could die off at some point. But only time will tell. But enough about that. Now it's time to talk about my favorite expansion. This is actually something that I've thought about quite a bit, and I will tell you that I have a clear and decisive winner. Without any hesitation, I think the best expansion was...
Prepare!
Well, I thought that was never going to end. Anyway, Burning Crusade, it was the best expansion. The main reasons the Burning Crusade has always stood out to me in particular is because of the zones. I think the zones in the Burning Crusade have really stood the test of time. As far as the zones and like raids and stuff like that, as far as how they actually look, I would say that they easily rival pretty much all the things that followed them, if they're not better in a lot of ways. I really like the Burning Crusade because it's very similar to vanilla in a lot of ways, but it's completely its own thing at the same time. I really like that sort of hardcore aspect, and the Burning Crusade had that more than any other expansion. Even though I never got to experience hardcore raiding at the time, I wish things now were more like they were back then. The concept in vanilla where hardcore in-game raiding was not accessible by much of the player base However, there was plenty of other content to do it in-game. It's just really appealing to me. I believe that that style of in-game is better than what we have now. I think all the players pretty much having the same in-game at different levels of difficulty is not as good. I think that people need content to be able to strive for, and at the same time, casual players need to have stuff that can preoccupy them outside of raiding, because not everyone wants to raid, and even if you do want to raid, you want to have other stuff to do in addition to raiding. In my opinion, Burning Crusade has the right level of challenge and difficulty, with some exceptions. Encounters probably need to be better in raids and stuff like that, but as far as catering to all types of players, there's difficult raiding content, there's lots of content to do outside of raiding, and to top it all off, it's a really great theme that's done extremely well. Alright guys, sorry the video was so long. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you made it to the end. And keep in mind, this is just my silly personal opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about what you think the best expansion is in the comments below, because I'm sure tons of other people have completely different outlooks on the best expansion. There's no right or wrong answer, and it's just really cool to hear about other people's experiences with the game. I'll be making a lot more World of Warcraft content on this channel, so make sure you stay tuned. Go ahead and subscribe if you want, drop a like, whatever. Always helps me out. It's pretty funny, I kind of just got carried away with this video. It's like 40 minutes long, or like 37 minutes long or something, and I was just, originally I was just going to try to brainstorm about my expansion, my favorite expansion, but oh well. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.